Okay, great. Um, Thanks for being here tonight, everyone. This is the ANC 1B Transportation Parks and Public Space Committee meeting. It is the first of the year, but it is last of the term, technically. Does Angela not have a link? Okay, I'm promoting you, Angela. There you go. Okay, so this is the last first meeting of the year, but it's the last meeting of the term. The committee members are appointed starting in February of each year and serve 1 year term. So um, thanks for doing this for a year, everyone. And I sent around an email, but the um, application is open again for people to rejoin. If you enjoyed doing this, I would encourage you to please fill that out and come back for another year. And it's kind of just a formality to fill it out. That way, it's a good check-in point. Like if you don't want to do it anymore, no problem. But if you do, just fill out the link. It's on our website, and we send it out as an email to everybody. So I'm going to share my screen with the agenda. Maybe. Is that working? Cool. Let me zoom in. So before I go over the agenda, quickly, let's do the roll call. And I'll just go how I have them written here. I'm here. Julius?
Present.
Dion? I think you're here.
Present.
Thanks. Zoe?
Present.
David?
Present.
Matthew? Other Matthew, not here. Johnny? I don't think I saw Johnny, right? No. Karen?
Present.
Guneev?
Here.
Nicole?
Present.
Laura said she couldn't be here tonight. Jay said he was not going to make it either. And Rebecca, Ben?
Here.
Cool. No Nick, right? Nope. Okay. And then Angela.
Present. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Great. Thanks, everyone. So I'll just read all of our agenda items real quick. So we've been asked to consider a letter of support for the Rock and Roll Marathon happening in March of this year. I think this is kind of a formality. I think we do this most years. But Diane Thomas from the marathon is going to be here, or I believe is here now, to kind of like just go over what the request is and probably explain any changes to the route or like how neighbors will be impacted on race day. So that'll be great. The next item is a notice of intent 25 through and for TPA. I'll pull that up when we get to it, but essentially this one is very simple. They're removing some parking spaces at 14th and another street. I don't remember. I will pull it up when we get there to increase sight lines and visibility for drivers as they approach the intersection and pull people back from parking so close to the crosswalk. So we'll go over that. And then I don't have anything drafted, but I think probably just like we can discuss any comments that we have on that. Then a discussion on the strategic bikeways plan, what ANC 1B priorities would be. I've sent this around a draft of these that I kind of like noodled over a couple weeks ago or maybe last week. And then they're continuing to do outreach. DDOT is about the updates to their plan. And there's going to be some virtual open houses and things like that. So it's a good time to kind of compile our thoughts and submit them to DDOT before they finalize the plan. Then an item on potential request for changes to parking restrictions on U Street. I wrote overnight. I think like late night is probably a better term. So we'll get into what that means. And then kind of like a continuing business item, kind of a sister resolution to our multifamily um, disabled parking, designated parking program resolution, to talking about ADA parking more generally in residential neighborhoods, and potentially resolution about that. So those are the 5 items. It is a lot of things. Hopefully it doesn't take all night. So I would like to make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll
Was that, I think I heard Ben and Karen. I wasn't looking.
You can call on Ben since he also did it too.
Okay, great. Chair motion to... Okay, all those in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Can we raise our Zoom hands? That's easier. Perfect. Yeah, at the full ANC meeting, we typically raise our Zoom hands and it's easier for counting. Okay, cool. So thanks for that, everybody. So Diane, I see you in the audience. So I'm gonna promote you to panelist and then we can talk about the marathon. Welcome, Diane.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
How are you?
Good.
Great.
So this is going to be really quick and short. So I'll start off by saying we don't impact any streets in your ANC. So that's important as far as the course is not in your ANC. However, it's important to get out because it is an impactful event. So I want to make sure I come out every year to make sure you guys kind of have it on your radar, share it with your constituency. And so they know what's going on Saturday, March 21st. It's coming up. It's traditionally, this is the 18th year for this event. It's traditionally about the second or third weekend in March, when it's starting to get a little warmer outside. This is a half marathon, so we no longer have the full marathon. It's just a half and a 5K. So what your commission or as you're moving around Saturday morning, you'll run into closures for the half marathon with about 12,000 runners expected on the streets. The closest street I can say for you guys that comes through several of the Ward 1 ANCs is the runners come out of the park at the Omni on Calvert, and they go eastbound on Calvert, and then they cut down onto brings you all the way to Columbia Road and then out Harvard, all eastbound. They're on Harvard all the way get to the reservoir. So they kind of pass through kind of north of you guys. They make a right when they get to the reservoir around Howard University, kind of run down 5th Street until it turns into 4th, and they make a left on Bryant, and they are out of the Ward 1 area. Again, there are about 12,000 runners that you'll see. The race starts at 8 a.m. on this Saturday morning, down at 14th and Constitution is where it starts. It loops around and finishes at 4th in Pennsylvania. The event time, like I said, it starts at 8. You'll start seeing street closures about 6, just where the start line is. The police control all the street closures, so they kind of do rolling closures and openings. You'll start usually about 30, 40 minutes before the race starts. You'll start seeing the Columbia Road, Harvard start closing down, just to control that traffic, and then MPD opens it up when that last runner comes through. Your total, I think last year, if my notes are correct, I think we cleared your area by about 11:15. All the runners were out and on their way, and MPD opened the streets back up. So I know there's no music along that area, only keeping in mind of residents, it's early morning. There used to be music at the Sunburst Plaza, right there, 18th and Columbia. That's moved because of the concerns of the community, so that has been moved. There is a band in Calvert Street when they come out of the park. So that's where you'll hear music there. And then you won't see another band until they get over to 5th Street on the reservoir behind Howard. There's no parking. I'll remind you guys, there's no parking on the course only. So it doesn't impact your SMD, but why should your ANC, not your SMD, but your ANC? It doesn't impact you guys directly, but it would be impactful to Harvard Street, Columbia Road and Harvard. And that's controlled by MPD. We put up the signs for the street closures, but that is controlled by MPD. All these closures for that morning are in Waze. Those of you who use Waze to get around on that Saturday morning, you can go in there and see what's closed because all those closures are uploaded. For you guys going southbound, shouldn't have any problem. The South Loop is pretty much down on Constitution. And then they go into the park. When they get around the Kennedy Center, they go up into the park. And then you don't see them until they pop out on Calvert. When they leave your ANC, they're all the way down North Capitol to K Street. And then they're west on K down to 4th. And then they finish up at 4th in Pennsylvania. So southbound getting out of the city, New York Avenue is open all day. Rhode Island Avenue is not impacted. New York Avenue is not impacted. There is an impact at Florida. I take that back. There's an impact at Florida and North Cap. So that's that one intersection that does get impacted because the runners on North Capitol. But if you need to get around, Mass Avenue is open, New York Avenue is open, and Rhode Island Avenue is open as far as major arteries that are getting you around the city. Again, there are no parking signs will go up 3 days before the event, just to remind people that it's coming. And I know there will be some street signs, the 22 by 22 coroplasts kind of look like campaign signs. They'll go up the week before and they come down the day of, just to remind people it's coming for the 21st of March. So that's in a nutshell. The website, you can go in if you want to race, if you guys are interested in running. It's the runrockandroll.com. All their events. St. Jude's Children's Hospital is a major beneficiary this year for this event and a big partner of a title sponsor of the event as well. So that's in a nutshell. Can I answer any questions for you guys?
Great. Thanks so much. I think in the emails you had asked for a letter of support. Is that true?
Yes.
Remember correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And then we would address that to
The Homeland Security Task Force,
Oh, the
HCM.
Homeland Security.
A Special Events Task Force is what it's called.
Okay, great.
I'm happy to send that in the address for you. It's no problem.
Oh yeah, sure. If you could just as a follow-up,
Yep.
send that to us so I know who to address the letter to. And yeah, Ben.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible. Things went great. Last year, what's different?
Nothing.
We can maybe just do the diff.
Nothing.
From last year. No change in route. No.
Exact same course. Mm-hmm.
Keep it easy.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, great. Well, I guess if there's no more comments, I'll move that we send a letter of support on behalf of the marathon.
Second.
Is seconded by David. All those in favor, please raise your Zoom hands. Okay, I have 8. I have 9. Okay, cool. Thanks, Diane, for being here tonight. And
Thank
we
you
will
guys.
connect about the letter.
Appreciate it. And just one more note, I will send a reminder just a week before for all the commissioners, so they can share it with their constituency. Excuse me, a number to call if there's any problems, if you see something happening. I know it's not directly in your ANC, however, you guys will be moving around, and if there's any issues or problems, we'd love to hear about it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, commissioners.
Karen, I see, is your hand still up from before?
Yes, I was busy typing something. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, so let's go to the next item, and that's that notice of intent I was talking about. So I'm going to pull that up so we can walk through what that is about. Okay, so typically one of the reasons why a notice of intent would be sent to the community and to the ANCs is when parking spaces are being removed, like RPP spaces in particular. And so this was sent to us, I guess, at the end of December. And this one proposes DDOT will remove 35 feet of current regulated RPP space on the west side of the 2500 to 2599 block of 14th Street Northwest, converting it to no standing or parking anytime, and no parking within 40 feet of the intersection. So the reason why they would typically do something like this, I think I mentioned before, is and this is what kind of like that zone looks like. DDOT sent us a picture. So there's currently like no parking for part of it, like closer to the intersection, but DDOT has determined that that's not an ideal condition, and removing this kind of like 1.5 more spaces would create like better sight lines, and also for when people are crossing 14th right here, and then just keep the cars further away from the crosswalk. I'm going to show it on the map to get a better sense. So this is 14th and Chapin, no, Clifton, 14th and Clifton on the west side. So it would like by the Sherwin-Williams. So it would help with people encroaching upon this crosswalk essentially. Potentially also with like the turn onto Clifton. So pretty straightforward. It's just like removing not even two full parking spaces really. So kind of my recommendation, since it's not a very complicated one, would just to send a similar letter of support, just saying that the ANC supports the action for like safety reasons. Does anyone have any comments about this one or questions, Karen?
Well, I know that we generally try to do these site line parking space issues with DDOT, and the reason why I'm curious as to how many spaces are they going to remove when they do this, because parking is a issue in this area. How far back do they plan to take it? Just one car back, or
So yeah, so this is the like kind of mock-up from DDOT, from the project manager, I guess, that he sent. So you can see that existing sign, and currently there's like 5 feet of no parking or so from like this like no parking line to
so they're
the
trying to do two
line.
car spaces based
Yeah.
on it. Because we've done this before, and I'm just wondering how often do we need to do it? Because if it's going to take out the whole block, and what is it that
I think it
I'm
would just
curious because we've done. I know that we consistently have done this, and I know it's probably just a matter of them putting a sign, moving their signage back, at least to the
right.
tree area. And I'm just curious, and I'm only asking because I know a number of people will be missing a parking space if that's the case. That's
Yeah,
all.
so they're moving it 40 feet from that line on the left, but it's more like 35 feet back from the sign that is in this picture.
And an average car, just giving an average car 7 feet of space, in length. So that's more than two parking spaces. So
Um, well, I think a typical parking space is like
is it
20
at
feet.
7? Is it 20?
Yeah, so the spaces are typically about 20 feet because
Okay,
there's
because of
a
trucks.
space there's space for the car, and then there's a little bit of extra space to get in and out of it, right?
Mm.
Theoretically, because you're not supposed to be parking like right on someone's bumper. I mean, people do, but But so they did, that's what they measure at 20 to be like the length of a car or truck, but then like a couple extra feet. And
Hmm.
and so
So
it
that's 2 parking spaces.
I think I'm gonna say is like 1.5. It's like 2,
Okay.
but it's
And I'm
just
I'm
2.
I'm
It's
I'm
not more.
only I'm only making a suggestion that we be conscious of the parking in the area and people losing parking spaces, especially in a congested area right there. And I'm trying to this they did a study saying that there was a site issue, or has there been any type of traffic incidents?
Um, so in this one, the justification is um, the no parking regulations were enacted to ensure proper visibility of pedestrians at locations such as crosswalks and intersection, enhancing safety in alignment with DDOT's Vision Zero goals. Um, it just cites visibility of pedestrians and uh, attempting to meet Vision Zero goals. It doesn't specifically say, at least in this notice of intent, it doesn't specifically say there were 5 crashes here, for example. But
Right. I
that's the justification.
and I'm only saying this because we don't want to be so arbitrary, especially in a highly impacted community that needs parking. And I would make a suggestion if they could lower the amount of space that they need if they need it. That's just my suggestion because I know that street is always a lot of parking on that area, and I'm just only making a suggestion that they go to just the 1 parking space as opposed to the 2, if that's possible, if they're reasonable, if they're interested. That's just my suggestion because I of the frequency of being around that area. That's Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Angela?
Yeah, I think largely my concerns were echoed by Karen, but I'm not sure that this specific space or proposal will solve their problem about visibility of pedestrians. I'm more concerned that it's actually the major crosswalk that is on 14th and Belmont, as people are chasing the buses up and down.
Mhm.
So removing that 1 parking space, is this looking south? Is that image where they're proposing looking south on 14?
I'll pull it up again.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
it's okay. He also sent us like a Park DC flyer just for people's knowledge, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's like a set policy now, I think, from DDOT that they are not allowing parking within 40 feet.
Okay.
Or it's like recommended that from traffic intersections. So that's in here. I
Okay.
believe that is from often a lot of these regulations are based off of the manual on uniform traffic control devices. That's a FHWA, Federal Highway Administration document that kind of like sets some of these standards for like how far parking is from a stop sign or a traffic signal or things like that. So it's possible that this is coming from that recommendation, and they're basically saying they've adopted that guideline and they're signing this location to get into compliance with that.
Got
Um,
it. Yeah.
I want to get to the map since you asked that question. Um, okay, so yes, it's facing south. So this is south. The direction that I am in right now is south. If we look to the west, there's this small no parking area and the sign, and then they're gonna move it back um, like 35 feet from here. Zoe?
Yes, I just shared in the chat a link to the Vision Zero page that sort of shows the like priority areas for pedestrian injuries and deaths and like 14th Street, and this part of 14th Street is an area of high injury. I don't totally know what the different tiers mean, but it's a color on that map. Um and
You're
yeah,
talking about the high injury network?
yes.
Yep.
And I just like yeah, I'm excited for anything that reduces pedestrian injuries in our ANC, which has a lot of them.
Um, great. Dion?
I guess in line with what Karen is asking, I'd be interested in knowing how many parking spaces are anticipated to be lost, just so that DOT, I mean, they can be in compliance with what you just mentioned. While I'd have no complaints about the two mentioned, simply because I do understand that that's a high traffic area, and there have been some things that I've witnessed in that particular area. But overall, in the ANC, just how many parking spaces are going to be lost in order for them to come into complete compliance?
Yeah, so I think that is a good question, and that is potentially a bigger question that we would maybe want to ask them. I think that's kind of out of the scope of this notice of intent. But I think it's something that we could ask them. I don't think we need a resolution or a letter. I think we could reach out to them and say, hey, is this a citywide policy that you're trying to get into compliance? Because like I bet a lot of locations are in compliance and then a lot aren't. So are they prioritizing specific areas to get into compliance? Are they just doing them when they get complaints? Like I don't know the answers to that. I think we could reach out to get some clarity on it. Karen?
The reason why I mentioned this particular area, yes, I mean, we all up and down 14th Street, we have so many the way the traffic pattern has changed, the introduction of bike lanes, the introduction of so much landscape on 14th Street has caused a lot of friction and problems on the 14th Street corridor. I do want that. The reason why I specifically asked about that particular corner is because it's a huge elderly population right in that area, and they do use their parking. And I know you all know that I'm an advocate for the disability parking, but I'm also an advocate for the seniors who are in the area who use the parking spaces. But I do not want to see them have any traffic fatalities, but I know that the problem that we have in that area when you come up on that corner driving is really because of the way that the we I think if the street signage, and it's a lot of other elements that play into it, and getting two extra parking spaces via DDOT may not be the resolvement that is actually going to settle that particular issue. That's the reason why I asked for a traffic study to coincide with this notice of intent. If that's possible, I think that that should be a preliminary process whenever they give us a notice of intent, so that we won't just think that they're arbitrarily just saying, oh, we're going to change that corner, that corner, that corner, and then we don't hear from them when we need them for other things in regards to parking. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Jean, I see your hand in the audience is raised, so I'm gonna allow you to talk.
Hi, I'm not an engineer, but I'm just looking at that picture, and it looks to me like if they put a curb bump out where those lines are, you wouldn't lose any parking, and that would be better than, because the pedestrian be able to walk to the end of that curb bump out and have great visibility at the street. Just a thought.
Yeah, it's a good thought, Gene. I think like concrete bump outs are really effective and a good tool. I do know that the ones they built near me on 17th and V and 17th in Florida took at least 9 months or a long time. And also cost a lot. Like sometimes they cost like $40,000 to do these like real concrete bump outs. Um, so often changing some signs, adding some markings, maybe putting some flex posts up is a faster way to get people into compliance and that's more cost effective. Concrete work is just crazy expensive. So Ben, I see there's some chatter in the chat.
Yeah, it seems flex posts are definitely in order in both of the photos that you showed us. There was a car whose nose was well into the no parking space. So, and yeah, kind of echoing the commenter from the audience. Yeah, a couple flex posts might create a lot more space by itself. Is it the norm to have flex posts when they make these sorts of changes? Is it something we need to request?
So I would say if it is something that people want, we should request it. The norm would be moving the sign and updating the markings to match. Because if there's, there's these cross hatches here, and then it doesn't really show in this picture, but there should also be like an end line to kind of cap the cross hatches, but it doesn't appear to be in this one. So they would, anyway, they would bring that line back, match it up with the sign, the new sign placement, and then crosshatch it. That's like the standard. If we're concerned about people encroaching on it, we could request additional measures like flex posts or wheel stops or something else if that's what people felt they wanted to do.
Is that the most cost effective, as you mentioned? Because I didn't know that they bring the cost to us as the ANC. I know that if they schedule things like that, they would take suggestions as well. And I think that the suggestion that Jean made is great, as well as what Ben is making. Can we add that into a letter as a response?
Yeah, so they don't with these projects, notice of intent, they don't usually um provide costs or anything like that. I just know that I work on similar stuff like this for Arlington, as why I know some of these numbers. But the so they wouldn't include that in their notice of intent, but it's something that we could suggest in a letter in response to it, and we could request a full actual built bump out. I don't like concrete as like a long term solution. In the short term, they're not going to do that because they're already planning on pulling the parking back. So they would be doing like a cheaper method for that. The other issue, oh, let me just show you. So when I talked to DDOT and others, the one thing that'll be difficult about this location to do a concrete bump out, and we're on a hill, is that the storm drain is right here. So that's what really adds to the cost of a lot of these curb line and concrete projects is if they're changing the curb, they'll need to rebuild a storm drain and potentially change the location. And then that's where a lot of the cost comes from, actually. I think we can still suggest it, but it is just
Well,
something that they'll consider.
Well, that's actually much more logical when you look at it, to be considerate of the fact that the storm drain. We definitely don't want to block storm drains along 14th Street at all. But so, with your expertise, what other alternatives do you think that we can have, without losing an additional parking space? One's parking space, I think, is okay, but two is too much, I think.
Yeah, so I think that's where we could ask for clarification about the kind of what Dion was saying about the 40-foot rule. Like that's what's in the Park DC flyer that the project manager, I'm going to get his name in a second if my email pulls up, Tyon Jones, sent to me today because I asked for kind of some clarification on the location. And he sent me that Park DC flyer. I think that's what we need to reach out about and just see like, is 40-foot the standard you're trying to apply everywhere? And then like, within the city or within ANC 1B, like how many do you estimate are compliant with the 40 feet if that's what you're working towards, and how many aren't, and like what's the inventory? Because it could, it could be removal of a lot of spaces if like no intersections are currently meeting that. Gene?
Yeah. So I hear you about the concrete and, of course, the sewers. So another thought is flex post with one of those mobile, mobility corrals, like one of those places where
Mm,
people can leave their scooters and bikes. And I'm not talking about like a big bike thing,
right.
but just one of those corrals. So that would be a physical impediment to a car trying to run over the flex posts. Just a thought. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a good thought. I think that is common. That's becoming more common as a something that's lower cost, doesn't require or impact the storm drains, and also is a little more hefty than just like two flex posts, right? So it is becoming a thing. Because I have been leading this, I have not taken good notes. So let's see, suggestions for flex posts, micro mobility corrals, or I'll just say concrete curb bump out. Questions about the impact ANC citywide, about compliance with 40-foot rule from traffic signals. Okay, so my main things right now, at least the two things that I just wrote down really quickly. I'll share my screen again. Are suggestions for adding, additional items that could actually prevent a car from being there besides just the signage and the markings. Because what markings and signs do is make it enforceable, right? They aren't actual barriers. They're just like enforcement mechanisms. These things are more like, well, you can't park on top of them. So people might try. So suggestions for adding that. Questions to DDOT about the impact this could have citywide, and then anything else? Karen, I hear you about the two spaces versus one space. Anything else from anyone? Or like a suggestion for what we should send. It doesn't even have to be, we don't even have to call it a letter of support. We could just say, we have some comments about this, and these are the comments. Because like if we frame it that way, then having the questions about the impact with compliance, then that doesn't take away from support. It's just like, well, this came to us and we're wondering about the 40-foot rule ANC wide, and we'd love to hear back from you about that. We could do that maybe.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, so I'm going to motion to send formal comments to the ANC for review on this, and the comments will have suggestions.
I second.
Thank you. Suggestions for adding flex posts, micromobility corrals, or concrete curb, and then ask about the 40-foot rule and if that is being implemented and how, basically, and what's the impact. Cool. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. Let's see. Karen, was that you who seconded? I was not looking.
Yes, it was me.
Cool. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, lower your hands, please. Okay, cool. Thanks, everyone. So the next one is comments about the bikeways plan. And used to be called something else. I forget what it was called. But now they're calling it the strategic bikeways plan, just the bike plan. I don't know. And they did in December a Ward 1 focused meeting, which maybe some of you attended. I was unable to attend. But I sent out, at least I kind of thought about it. I talked to some people about this. And I've thought about other things that we've talked about throughout the year. And I kind of came up with some initial comments. These are, don't have to be the only ones, of course. I would love additional suggestions, any ideas. Basically, the bikeways plan is going to be like the guiding document for DDOT for where and how they maintain and improve and enhance the bike network in the city. So that could be, making sure the existing facilities are in a state of good repair. It could be expanding the network to locations that don't currently have bike facilities. It could be upgrading existing facilities to different types of facilities. Or I think the other one is maybe like filling gaps in between existing areas where it's not really like expanding into a whole new neighborhood, but it's like strengthening or making the connections between one facility to another easier. So those are kind of like the things I think they're thinking about for what to do. And what I did was kind of just like, mentioned CDOT's working on the plan, that they're accepting public comments, that and that's it. I don't think I need to get into like more than that for the whereas clauses. So my first resolve clause was that I think ANC 1B supports a plan that expands the bicycle network in DC, closes existing gaps, builds new infrastructure, encourages more people to consider cycling, and creates a safer transportation network for all road users, right? Because if we're creating a bike network that's only good for cyclists or, and like does things that could not work for other users, it's not really a whole network. The bike network is part of the bigger transportation network. So I think a good bike network makes it safer for everybody. So that's I think that's kind of like the vision resolved clause. And then the further resolved is just like a list of specific priorities. So I can read through them real quick, and then I would like to kind of like, get feedback, discuss, see how people feel. So the first one is 14th Street Northwest. And what I've said is conversion of the existing painted lanes to protected bike lanes from Columbia Heights through ANC 1B and continuing downtown. Currently, there's some parts of 14th Street that have protected elements, like the floating bus islands, but it's mostly just a painted lane. And there are a lot of issues with the bike lane from pickup and drop off or deliveries or, people you're just talking about it, people parking, the buses and stuff, where it's not an ideal corridor for cyclists in its current condition, but I think it has the potential to be. So that's one. The next two, I think hopefully shouldn't be anything new for people. It's already in the plans, but I just, I don't want it to fall off. Reiterating our support for the 11th Street and Vermont Avenue bike lanes, those two projects, and just reiterating that we passed a resolution last year about it, and we would love to see those facilities be built. The next one is kind of a long paragraph, but 15th Street, this one's a little bit different because the parts of it that I'm kind of like recommending enhancements to are not in ANC 1B, but the 15th Street bike lane obviously passes through ANC 1B and is the most significant cycle track and protected bike facility in the city. Always goes all the way from Columbia Heights um, down to the wharf essentially, or you can continue over the bridge into Virginia onto the Mount Vernon Trail. So it's the most important bike facility, but there's a couple gaps in it. So one would be on the north side, just a little bit outside of the ANC, to kind of fix the connection where it ends up at the north. It stops at the park, the protected part, and then it continues as a painted bike lane. But then when you get to 16th Street, there's no good way to get into Mount Pleasant or other parts of Columbia Heights. So just like asking DDOT to consider ways to make that northern connection better. Kind of south of us, it's asking for the 15th Street bike lane by the White House to fix the connection there. Even before they started building the bunker, the ballroom, they were making it impossible to use Lafayette Park and Madison Place as a way to bike safely from one side of the White House to the other. So this is asking for DDOT to essentially ignore that the White House is there and build a connection from where the 15th Street bike lane currently ends to on the north side to where it picks back up by the Treasury Department, and just kind of fix that gap. It's like the biggest gap in the cycle track now that it goes across the mall protected. So I think it's important to fix that gap for people who bike through our neighborhood down to there, or people who live in our neighborhood and bike down to there. So that's what that one is about. The next one's a little complicated too. So currently T Street Northwest has a standard like painted bike lane that goes all the way to like 7th and the Howard Theater. And then it kind of that cobblestone shared street-ish thing in front of the Howard Theater just ends at Florida. And if you're biking there, it's dangerous to bike on Florida there. And then to continue on, cyclists often have to ride on the sidewalk, which is not great for pedestrians. And then it's very difficult to continue. There's some good bike facilities in LaDroit Park, some contraflow lanes and stuff, but like to continue on into LaDroit Park or just other locations past that kind of T in Florida intersection is very difficult. So this isn't really prescribing anything that they should do there, but that like DDOT should focus some energy on improving this connection and making it easier to get in and out of LaDroit Park. New Hampshire Avenue. So I actually got this idea from reading the ANC 2B, our DuPont ANC just south of us resolution, and their resolution, because they have the bulk of New Hampshire, I believe, in their ANC, but they're asking for the conversion of the existing New Hampshire Avenue Northwest standard bike lanes to protected bike lanes or a protected cycle track connecting Meridian Hill / Malcolm X Park to DuPont Circle, and I think they said to go all the way to Washington Circle. I just said point south. So I thought that was a neat idea. And of course, New Hampshire ends, or the northern part of New Hampshire is in 1B. So I liked that suggestion as a potential future project. And then this last one was kind of general, but we have a lot of good north-south connections that are protected. Obviously, 15th Street is the big example, and hopefully soon 11th Street. But in the neighborhood and throughout the city, there aren't a lot of east-west connections that are really high-quality facilities. So I was just asking DDOT to consider improvements that would enhance east-west connections through the neighborhood. So I think that was a lot. I would like to open the floor to everyone else. Nicole.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I largely agree with a lot of the points that you put in this, especially the east-west connector. I think T Street is a really good example of that as someone who has traveled on foot and on bike from T to exactly that intersection with Florida, it is not very safe. And I think there's a tremendous amount of improvement that could be done if there is focus applied to that area. I would also suggest we consider something at kind of the very northern edge of our ANC, which is as kind of Vermont turns into Sherman. So if you are progressing north, you might pass the that intersection with the gas station where right near the 930 Club and the old housing finance building, and you start moving north, and there is a great protected bike lane there. You go in front of the Whole Foods up north, and as you're entering like Sherman Avenue, the entire bike facility disappears. So if you are on a bike, you are going slightly uphill and you have to merge into traffic, which is not a very safe maneuver. And it's also a place where kind of the road geometry changes. You get that concrete barrier in the middle of it, and it also tends to be a place where cars speed up, just like in my experience of it. I think yeah, this is a place where I don't think we have to prescribe what there is to be done, but it's basically a point where bike infrastructure kind of ends really abruptly. It means that that part of the current bike network in the northern bit of our ANC is really cut off and is not being used to its full effect because it does sort of dump you into a like really messy situation. And yeah, we could talk about it more in depth, or we could just kind of kick it over to DDOT to see what infrastructure signal timing or other
Yeah.
things could be done. But I recommend we highlight that intersection as a place that needs attention in order to really knit together a good bike network.
Okay, I want to quickly pull it up just
Yes.
so everyone can see and I can make sure I know exactly which place we're talking about. I have somehow ended up in Florida. Hold on, please. Whole Foods. It's Washington, D.
Yeah, it's basically where the
Okay. I think because I was trying to type Florida Avenue, it took me to Florida,
yeah.
Florida.
I don't know if you're able to share your screen as
Yeah.
well. But I realize I probably described it in a more confusing way than necessary, but it is.
So yeah, kind of like let me try to get
Yes.
satellite.
So as you're going up Florida and you pass U Street, you pass in front of the Whole Foods, there's a two-way protected bike lane there. And then as you go,
Where Florida becomes Sherman, basically.
yes. Yeah, I think that's Berry Place that it's crossing there. No, Berry
Okay.
Place comes one block next. But as you're starting to pass these Howard dorms and then next that apartment block, Florida turns into Sherman and the bike lane completely cuts out.
Mm-hmm.
That is the area that I think there's a lot going on in this intersection anyways. We can see a lot of shapes looking at it from above. But about in like 2016 or 2017-ish, there was that big redesign a little bit south of there. As they were building the Ren and the Whole Foods buildings, they did a bunch of infrastructure treatments on that street. And I think
Mm-hmm.
now, well, I think that was overall good. I think now it is not connected in that north-south way with Sherman Avenue. So I think I would like us to flag that for DDOT as a place to look at.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, it looks like at least in this aerial,
Yeah,
we
that's the
have
last block of the
that
bike
Sherman
lane.
block, and then
Yeah.
it ends Berry Place and Sherman. It's kind of
Hmm.
like, well, what are you supposed to do next?
Yes.
Okay. I will make a note of that. Julius?
Yeah, I also, sorry. Sorry, dude.
Okay.
I'm a little under the weather. Yeah, a lot of great ideas. The one I wanted to mention was Florida Ave at Florida Ave. This is a little bit outside of 1B, but it extends up into 1B. But there's a protected bike lane kind of down that's connects the H Street corridor up into New York, and that's on both sides of the road on Florida Ave. But it ends after where it crosses New York, I'm pretty sure, right? Like by the Eckington Bouldering Project. And it's another place where people are going on the sidewalk. There's like really no, it's two lanes of traffic. There's not much shoulder. There's also that kind of, brick divider between the pavement and the actual curb, which is another added like obstacle for cyclists. And I'm pretty sure at least Florida is unprotected all the way up through 1B. Um, I don't know what kind of what the reasoning for that is. If it would probably reduce it down to one lane. Um, but I think it would it's one of those like Sim City things where it doesn't make sense to have like a bike lane, in my opinion, a protected bike lane that just suddenly ends on a very like busy and somewhat dangerous corridor. It's also one where, at least in my experience, I've been biking there fairly late at night. And because it connects U Street to H Street. And there are people, who are driving fast, it would I think improve that corridor a lot if that bike lane extended farther, protected bike lane, or even just a bike lane extended farther north or south, but hopefully both.
So I think for us, it would make sense to ask, continue the Florida Ave Northeast bike lane into west and towards U Street or towards ANC 1B. Because there's essentially what you're asking for is an extension of an existing facility
Yeah.
towards us. We could ask the other way too, but it's like makes more sense to bring it to us,
Right.
from a
Yeah.
1B perspective.
Definitely.
Cool, Dion.
I think I'm going to go back to Nicole's suggestion, just a little further down at that intersection of Florida 9th Street and V, right at the corner where the 930 Club sits.
Mhm.
With the change in the direction of traffic on 9th Street, now there is an intersection where the green light means that not only are cars going in three different directions, the bike lane is going from Florida, one part of Florida, and crossing V and 9th Street. So it does become an issue, especially when things get congested, where cars are either making that right onto V Street or
Mhm.
going straight onto 9th Street, right near the 930 Club and this smaller version of it. I don't know the name of that particular club. But right at that intersection, if there could be like a bike light or an
Mhm.
indication of at that green light, everybody can't go all at once. And
Right.
you can see where the white car is generally in that turning lane is where people either make the right turn or go straight. But you can also see on the side where the bike lanes are crossing at that same point.
Yeah, no. I think since this is an updated image, we really can see how complicated this intersection is. So let's see. Okay, Ninth in Florida. I'll say suggestion for a bike light and or additional um, improvements to help with my screen disappeared. Hold on. Additional improvements to say enhancements to signal timing, because that's what we're kind of talking about here. Enhancements. Is that why is enhancement? I don't know how to spell enhancement, I guess. Looks crazy.
It's that N after the E.
The The N after the E? I don't know. It's going to be wrong for
First E.
The second letter.
now. Additional enhancements to signal timing to improve bike and something like that. Okay, Ganev. I understand what N after the E means now. I didn't understood what it meant while I was typing. Guneev, I guess you did you lower your hand? If you were
Oh,
talking, you
so sorry. I was still on mute.
oh sorry.
No, I apologize for that. But at least you fixed enhancements. So I totally agree with everything that's been said, and 100% agree with the east-west routes could be a whole lot more connected. They can be better. It's really difficult to get to northeast from here. My suggestion is to include adding along 14th Street designated, I believe they're called drop-off pickup zones. Um, even if we were to add FlexiPost to the 14th Street bike lanes, cars would still have to stop in the right lane, which blocks one lane of traffic, and then also they're swinging the doors open into the bike lane, which I ride it almost every day to my office, and I'm constantly yelling bike lane, or having to get out into the middle of the street or something. So adding designated zones would, I think, also improve the safety of bikers and the passengers or whomever getting out of the vehicles.
Great. Um, excellent suggestion. Any other comments?
This is not related to the Berry Street Sherman Avenue, but you had made a comment about the cobblestone streets being fixed for bike lanes. And I was
Oh,
curious as to in Georgetown, I mean, in a lot of areas in the Georgetown area, there's a lot of cobblestone streets for historic, the historic streets. Have they made any changes that you know of for bike lanes in order to see how they remedy that area for bike
mm,
lanes and comparing,
yeah.
especially when it comes to the historic areas that has those cobblestone pathways, what is the general process when you're dealing with historical areas like that? All of
Yes.
DC is historical, but I'm
So
curious, those particular places, I thought they were left like that intentionally. So I'm really curious as to what has been the remedy as we've been moving forward um, into 2026, we'll
yeah,
say.
so I think tonight when I mentioned the cobblestones, I was just trying to describe, on T Street in front of the Howard Theater, it's more like pavers or like it's not the regular asphalt. It's like a more it's like a fancy street, right? And so I was just mentioning that as a descriptor for how T Street comes into Florida here and how there's, T Street dumps you out in Florida. You shouldn't bike there, really. You have to go onto the sidewalk, and then you can see in the aerial, LaDroit has like some interesting bike lanes on Sixth and T. There's just no good way to connect to them, or when people coming from LaDroit, where are they supposed to go? But so no, Karen, I don't actually know of any. Like in Georgetown, of course, is a good example with some of the cobblestone streets. Like they're just kind of there, and I don't think there's any plans to do anything about them to make them bike friendly. I think like if you bike on a cobblestone street, you're just going to be pretty jittery. So no, I don't think there is anything about those that at least that I'm aware of.
Okay, because I do know that near the Howard Theater there's a little pathway that is a cobblestone pathway, but I didn't see anyone using it as a bike lane, but it's more of an alley-ish type way.
Mhm.
However, I was just thinking that you had come across a pathway that you was thinking that they may repave, but if that's not
No, I don't think so.
okay, if I just was trying to see if there was a helpful solution to your issue that you were talking about. But that was it. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, so great, great comments, everybody. I think what I would like to propose is to incorporate these comments into the kind of resolution I ran through. So I'm just going to repeat them real quick so people can correct me if I got them wrong. So Nicole raised issues about east-west connections. So we have that in there, maybe just add some additional stuff. Shout out for T Street as a good example. The main thing from Nicole, though, that we're going to add is the Florida Sherman Berry Place connection, and just suggesting improvements to that area to make it an easier transition or continue the facility. Like, that's for DDOT to kind of determine, but just highlighting it for them as a problem area. From Julius, we had continue the Florida Avenue Northeast bike lane into Northwest and ANC 1B. Dion highlighted the Florida and 9th and V intersection as a problem area with the specific suggestion for a bike light. And I think we can go ahead and just talk about enhancements to signal timing generally to that area. So that's a great one. And then Guneev with the incorporating pickup and drop off zones on 14th Street. So some of these, like on the 14th, that one is a good one that I would add that to the 14th Street bullet point, that section. I would add Florida and the Florida Ave Northeast extension, and then Sherman Berry Place. Those would all get 3 new kind of bullet points because those were new areas of concern. And then that's adding those bullet points and adding the pickup drop off and stuff. That's what we would send to the full ANC for February.
I second.
Great, thanks. So all those in favor of that plan, please raise your Zoom hands. Seconded, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because we lost David, I guess. Okay. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Okay, great, guys. Thanks so much. Okay, rolling right along. We can go to the late night parking on U Street. So Commissioner Fay said he was going to join us for this, but I don't see him here, so we'll just carry on without him. But essentially what this one is, and maybe Jean can speak to part of it, but so U Street, our beloved U Street, cultural hub, historic hub of Washington, D.C., is very busy on Thursday nights, all nights, but especially Friday and Saturday. And busy from pedestrians on the street, often like overflowing into the sidewalks, busy from people driving through the neighborhood, to the neighborhood, from the neighborhood, and then busy from like pick up and drop off and delivery. In transit. It's just a lot going on. So this idea, I think, originated with some of the business owners along the corridor, but essentially it's to try out, instead of like allowing late night parking, so like after 9 or 10 p.m. Along the corridor, so directly on, I guess in the resolution I said 10 p.m., but on U Street directly, instead of allowing paid parking there, converting those spots to be pick up and drop off only, or like short-term parking, like 5 minutes, for that would be designated for pickup and drop off, either from ride share, ride hail, or for delivery drivers, after those hours. This would theoretically, obviously make it easier for people using those services, but also would help with traffic congestion, because a lot of times people who are getting into cars, the Uber driver or the ride share will double park, and then that causes congestion. Um, and so, and people park too close to the intersections, people park in the intersections, and uh, turning them into a pickup drop off would make it, more enforceable for police, and kind of like help move people along more efficiently. This has been done before on Connecticut Avenue, kind of north of M Street, south of the Circle. The business owners there, and I assume the Golden Bid Triangle worked with MPD and DDOT to implement this there, and that showed some improvements. And I know they've also started doing this in Clarendon, which is like obviously the big hotspot for nightlife in Arlington, where they're converting a lot of like late night parking to pick up and drop off spaces as well to help with some of these issues. So that's kind of the background. The resolve clauses are, ANC 1B recommends conversion of paid parking zones to 5-minute pickup drop-off spaces along the U Street corridor from 9th Street Northwest to 14th Street Northwest after 10 p.m. on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Be it further resolved that DDOT installs signage that clearly and legibly explains the updated restrictions along the corridor, and that DPW and MPD provide resources to enforce these new restrictions, because DDOT does the policy and the infrastructure, but DPW and MPD actually enforce the policy. So that is the resolution. Any questions? Karen, I see your hand.
Yes, of course. This was brought up in a public safety meeting, and we had a conversation with MPD, and the concern was there was no outreach within the residential area with the residents for this. It's a interest of the business owners, but the residents who park in these areas, because again, if you live in this area specifically, um, the parking for residents is a huge concern. So if you're going to add some restrictions, I would suggest that people who have this is the zone 1 parking in that area.
Well, so Karen, on U Street, it's all paid parking. It's not the residential.
Right. No, I'm not finished. I know, Matthew. The people who are, it's not restricted. I would think that if you can just add in it that it's not any restriction for people who are zone 1 parking residents. And I do understand about paid parking, and there are a lot of different paid parking positions. I mean, parking spaces that the residents are really crying about. But I would suggest that if there's going to be any changes, that we could extend that offering to open up those spaces for residential parking. That's my suggestion. That it's open for zone 1 parking, even though it's restricted for paid people and dropped off, etc. That's all. That was my only thing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments from not commissioners, committee members before we get to Jean? If not, we can go to Jean.
Hello again. I just wanted to, under the resolutions, 800 block of Florida Avenue should be included, and not so concerned about the 1300 block of U Street. And in consideration of, diners, we can move the time frame back to 10:30. And I do believe that the feeling is we do not need Thursday. So to try to minimize the impact that and to focus on the nights where it is just become so chaotic, so that DDOT, DPW, and MPD can focus their resources on the nights when we really need it, is the feeling. We don't want to ask for too much. I do think they have Thursday night at DuPont Circle. They have much more of a nightclub kind of environment per se. I don't know. I don't want to say it's apples and apples or apples and oranges, but it is something we would really, really like to try to emulate and at least try it. And the goal is to get this in place before the warm weather so that we already have the tools, and it would be also a two-pronged effort. You absolutely have to have, obviously, DPW enforcing it with towing, but MPD, we would like very much if they could maybe bring Vice up and arrest people that are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, which is just too overwhelming for our 3D police to try to do, and also contain the issues. So it's just
I would
open to
defer.
ideas, but
Yeah.
the core is to give the our community the resources to try something where nothing else has worked. It's an
Yeah.
effort to make it uncomfortable for people to just hang on the streets and party and double park and do all this stuff that's going on. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Gene. I think for any of the other than the parking enforcement, I would leave like suggestions for like vice or things like that with the public safety committee. I kind of see that as out of the purview of the transportation committee. But if the public safety committee considers something and they wanted to combine this, like if eventually this resolution is combined with the public safety one, I think that could be fine. I just kind of wanted to target, the
Understood. I just wanted to try to give everyone the bigger picture.
Yep.
It's not just a transportation thing. Thanks.
I think I saw another hand.
That was me. I was just gonna echo what you said about not wanting to talk about add in a recommendation for Vice. Yeah, I just think like more arrests on 13th, and you would add chaos to my Friday and Saturday nights.
Great. Thanks, Zoe. Um, okay, so I think um, I think adjusting the hours, bumping it back to what is it? So in here, 10:30 and getting rid of Thursday maybe mitigates some of the concern about reducing parking. But I also, what did I say? Something that is important to remember also that I didn't mention in here before is that U Street, hopefully in 2027, but maybe sooner if we're lucky, we'll be getting the bus priority project. And so that will actually has the opportunity to increase access to the corridor through better transit service. And so even with potentially reduced parking during late night hours directly on U Street, there would still be improved transit service, and also getting rid of double parked cars and things like that would help the buses stay on time.
And what about the opening up the opportunity for residents that's in the residential zone one parking so that they can have more access to the U Street area, since everything seems to be changing. I mean, I think there should be some considerations to the residents.
I I I think if the idea is to get people to not be parking on U Street during congested and busy hours, at least personally to me, it doesn't make sense to have like residential parking there. Um, Whereas the turning them all into pickup and drop off spaces, that like increases the flow of traffic and gives people who are just coming in and out of the neighborhood like easy spots to
So
park.
from after 10:30 p.m. until what's the cutoff time? From you have to you have the time period. I don't see an end time on Fridays and Saturdays. I see 10:30 p.m. We
That's a good
have
point.
and I know that people I I really people who live around here who park around here who have to deal with this situation of not finding parking. Yes, it's a bear to look at a lot of the paid parking spaces, but and
I
the
think
club life really encumbers a lot of the livelihood of the residents in the area. So what I was just suggesting, if there's a cutoff time where people can go out and at least get their cars from the 10 blocks away from their homes and put it closer to their house, it's good to have a good space to park in without being if there's zone one parking, because that area is zone one parking. So
yeah, the surrounding blocks are definitely zone one parking. The U Street itself is not zone one parking.
I know, I'm just trying to show that we're trying to look out for the residents. That's all. That was just my insight.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I think it is good to use or to put a in time on if the pickup drop off starts at 10:30, it should end. So we could say, I mean, DDOT will say, Gene, I see your hand. But either like 6 a.m. or until paid
No,
parking
the
resumes.
clubs are supposed to stop serving at 3, so it should be before 6.
Um, okay. Gene?
Yeah, yes. Sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier. We had asked for 5, and I believe it was Commander Connors, but it was somebody from MPD that suggested 6 because they felt that that gave DPW enough time to do the street cleaning before cars start parking. But I'll defer to whatever you all think. But 5 or 6.
Yeah, my initial thought was I was thinking like until metered hours begin the next day, but now since they're doing the performance parking, it's like 24 hours. Paid parking can be 24 hours on certain blocks, right? So I don't think that makes sense. I think 6 a.m. um makes sense to me because if people were coming for business or to work or to park on U Street the next day, like theoretically they would not be doing that before 6 a.m. But if they needed to, some places that open early or whatever, um, you know, 7 or uh, after 6, people could still park there. Sure. Okay. Um, any other comments from people? If no additional comments, I guess I would like to make a motion. And the motion is to support the late night parking on U Street resolution with those changes to the hours, 10:30 Fridays and Saturdays instead of Thursday. And I guess that's it. Um, Gene suggested the 800 block of Florida. We could add that, I guess.
If you're making the motion, I second it.
Thanks, Zoe. Um, Karen, let me ask you something. So Gene said that at least from the business perspective, they weren't concerned about the 1300 block. Would you feel better if we instead of saying from 9th to 14th, if we dropped some of the blocks and just did like
Is it
the
from 8 to the 13th to the 1400 block? What are you going to do? Put a gap in between this, or
so
is it?
that's I mean that's I kind of think it makes more sense operationally if it's like one whole corridor, and if there's a block in the middle that is different, that's confusing for people. But
If
um,
it's going to start at 8th, if it's the 800 to 1200 or 800 to 1300, that sounds smarter because 1400 to 1600 is not the bar zone.
so like 8th through
13th, that's where it looks like Bourbon Street.
13th. I think some of the commissioners were wondering about, like I talked to Miguel about this before the meeting, was wondering about like the northeast corner of 14th and U, because now there's all those clubs there, or bars, clubs and bars. Uh,
Well, I actually think that it should actually begin a little bit further down, where where the past the Howard, right there at the
8th, you
where the
said
Howard Theater, no, a little further down, actually, down
7th?
not U Street. When we're on Florida Avenue, before Florida Avenue meets U Street. It needs to start down at the Florida Avenue area, right there at the corner, right there. Well, I
6th?
would actually go 600 block Florida Avenue, down the 600 block of Florida Avenue, from Florida all the way up to the 1300 block of U Street, in regards to
Now we're
the
talking about a really big corridor.
well, I mean, that's actually the Bourbons. That's where all
Yeah,
the congestion starts. That's where all of the activity starts, and that is actually Bourbon Street. I mean, literally. And even though 14th Street is getting some new establishments, it hasn't. That congestion doesn't really get at 14th. It stops at 13th. That's my
yeah.
perspective that I've seen, but you all can weigh in and tell me what you think. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Zoe?
Yeah, I live on the 1300 block of U Street, and I would definitely want it included in this. This is like the double parking and car chaos is definitely very strong.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, the
Okay.
one west of what you're showing here
So like 13th.
through
Hmm.
14th. I understand if the businesses aren't concerned about it, but because that's
Oh,
me,
okay,
that
so
yeah, we have a lot of that.
14th. Yeah, okay.
The
So,
starting point is on Florida Avenue, not U Street.
okay.
It
So
really
maybe,
clearly starts back there.
yeah. So is it 800
That's six in
block?
Florida, around the six
You
in
think
Florida.
we could do expansive and just see what
Okay.
they say. I bet they won't do that whole corridor, but we could get essentially what we're doing is we're giving the big parameters and then they would implement it maybe more narrow, but Gene.
Yeah, Karen bringing up the 600 and 700 blocks of Florida are very interesting. First of all, they don't have parking right now. You know, you can't because it's they're driving lanes.
Right.
There is no, but if it were to be included, I mean, I don't know. You definitely would want MPD to weigh in because they do so much traffic mitigation at that 7th in Florida, 7th in Georgia Avenue in Florida intersection. But it's a very interesting proposition.
I think, how about we add it? I mean, the resolution is going to go. We're going to send it to DDOT. We're going to send it to DPW. We're going to send it to MPD, and they're going to give us feedback, right? So this is
Right.
just, it's just an idea, and then I think they'll respond to it. And so if we know that where the issues are this 6th in Florida to 14th and U, then let's
And
do
that's
those
what we had
boundaries.
from public safety point of we had a murder there, and we've had quite a few. The activity is extremely strong, and if we have even and we have actually a traffic camera posted right. I mean, a camera posted there, but it's because it's such a bad area, and it needs
Yeah.
to have as much mitigation as possible. And if we're intentional about how we to make sure, because the traffic is congested in that spot, because in spite of the fact of it being a driving lane, people still double park and take their time and do whatever they want. And I
Right.
like this. I like this enforcement idea. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, so let's do 6th in Florida to 14th and U, and then bump it back to 10:30, just Fridays and Saturday. Have the explicit cutoff time, so it's not open-ended, and people know more specifically what we're asking. Those are the changes. So I think, did Zoe move this already? I think so. Somebody did. Okay. So all those in favor, please raise your Zoom hands. Okay, great. Oh, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've realized now, did we lose another person? Because we only have 7 now. So I think we don't have quorum anymore. So this is just going to be, this is going to be a recommendation. It's not going to be an official vote, I guess, if we don't have quorum. But it's still valuable to the ANC. So thanks, everyone. I'll just put a note. I'm going to put a note in the.
I have 8 in our panelists. What is your number for quorum? Isn't it 8?
Let me stop sharing. Maybe I just can't count. Um,
I have 8 panelists.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, it's because I don't typically vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, but that's how you got 8. Um, I think I think the chair of the committees only votes if there's a tie, but I think we still need quorum. This is actually an interesting question. I'm going to write down that it was 7 yays, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions, and just maybe bring up that I'll ask for a clarifying question in case it's an issue. I don't think it'll be an issue, but I'll just tell them that we didn't have everybody. Okay, cool. Thanks, everybody. That was a good conversation. So now we have, that was all of our new business. Now we have like old business item, a continuing business item, and this is the idea of, we had the multifamily disabled designated disabled parking space resolution a couple months ago. Now this is, through that conversation, we had the idea of, well, what about non-designated ADA parking spaces in residential neighborhoods? What does that look like? To my knowledge, there's still no program for this that DDOT does. They've done like pilots here or there for like non-designated spaces, but there's not like a citywide program that does this. When in my little bit of research, the only time they do designated ADA spaces or marked ADA spaces on street, of course, in a garage or in a lot is a different mechanism, but for on-street parking, they only put them for paid metered parking spaces or for the designated space program that we've previously talked about. There's typically no general purpose anybody can use non-paid ADA spaces. So Karen had come up with a resolution, draft resolution previously, if I can find it.
Are we able to vote on it with the quorum issue,
Well, so,
Karen?
that's it. That is an interesting question. I think what I want to do tonight, Karen, is since we are having this quorum issue and it is 8:38, I just want to raise. I want to share with everyone the resolution that you did, and then I did do a pared down one. We could talk about that, and then maybe hopefully we could vote on it at the next meeting. Does that sound like it works?
I can look at your pared down version. I'm not going to make a decision tonight because I haven't seen your pared down version.
Yes, well, I did just do it today, so I would be impressed if you had seen it because it's just on my computer.
But I did like the discussion that the commission had in regards to this, that sort of really supported it already, because of the simple fact that everyone is talking about how terrible it is for people who really need to have these spaces in place. So I do like that support so far. But I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing your pared down version.
Okay, so this is Karen's. She sent it to everyone as an email, I don't know, November, something like that. October, one of those meetings. And I put it, I just pasted it into the template. And so whereas clause ANC 1B, highest, one of the highest concentrations of multifamily housing, talking about street parking often being the only option. Asking DDOT to immediately increase the number of designated disability parking spaces in the neighborhood. This one here, talking about guidelines from the ADA. Standards suggesting approximately one accessible space per 20 residential units. I think we'll need to tweak that. I think I've seen it before where it's like 25 for every 25 on-street paid or marked parking spaces, it's one space required, not units. So I would either
That's
want to
correct. That's actually correct. Not the units, but residential. I mean,
space.
1 in every 20 spaces, not
Yeah.
units. I
Okay.
apologize. That's
It's
a
okay.
that's a miss. I misspoke on that particular one. Thank you.
Yep. So then talking about the current number of spaces is below the recommendation or the guidelines. Talking about the older housing stock in the neighborhood and how older buildings often don't have off-street parking. These next three all, whereas clauses, talk about like raising why it's an issue for residents and neighbors, from safety concerns, the inconvenience of it all, causing hardship in people's lives. Talking about the aging population and how without the parking spaces, it's harder to age in place. And this one kind of sums that up: safety hazards and hard to participate in community life. Then it's talking about doing asking DDOT to do an assessment blocks with multifamily and where they could add the spaces. I crossed out priority given to ANC 1B. We could do that. We could always be the priority. Um, then this is recommending the ratio that 20 units or 4% of total street parking spaces. This is prioritizing the location of them, so they're in places that make sense, near curb cuts or building entrances. How to prioritize them: blocks with multifamily that lack off-street parking, medical facilities, senior centers, social services along high-density corridors, and then based off requests, of course. Then this is about the timeline: initial assessment within 30 days. Installation shall begin within 60 days. Oh, I missed this one, Karen. ANC 1B shall receive first phase implementation within 90 days. And then talking about 1 year to install them all. And then this is about enforcement and maintenance, and then funding, and then asking for a progress report on this. So that was Karen's, which is great. I kind of like I did before, did a pared down version, which I think is the spirit of there, but it doesn't have, it's not as prescriptive. So I took four of, well, some of your, I took three of your whereas clauses, but this one I wrote, and this is based off of my knowledge. People can correct me, but I said DDOT currently provides ADA parking at metered spaces and designated ADA spaces for residents eligible for the designated disability parking program, but they don't have a program for designating unassigned ADA spaces on neighborhood streets. To me, I think where this differentiates itself is the neighborhood streets. On our high density corridors like U Street or 14th Street, a lot of those streets on the commercial corridors have paid parking. So there might be ADA spots, but they're paid parking. Where they don't ever put them are on the neighborhood streets, on the residential streets, unless it's part of that designated, only one person can park there with the permit sign. So this is like pointing out that they don't put these on the neighbor streets at all, really. So just kind of highlighting the lack of the program. Then, bringing the undue hardship whereas clause. And then I wanted to keep it simple because they don't even have the program. And getting the program up and running and funding it and implementing it would take a lot. And I don't pretend to know exactly how DDOT would do that. So I just said ANC 1B recommends that DDOT establish a program to install unassigned ADA spaces on neighborhood streets, and that be it further resolved that ANC 1B recommends DDOT guidelines and standards for residential ADA space placement, and their ratios should be based on or exceed the most recent public right-of-way accessibility guidelines, or PROAG. That's like a kind of street focused transportation planning and engineering document that is like a recommendation for the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act. It's not mandated like some other things right now, but a lot of jurisdictions are building new facilities and trying to retrofit old facilities to be in compliance with PROAG. So because that is a well-known standard, I just wanted to throw that in there and say that DDOT should be working towards either meeting that or exceeding that when standing up this program. Karen.
I do appreciate your tactical alignment with those people who speak that the PROAG speak. That I appreciate that. However, I know that a lot of the technical aspects of the previous write up that I gave you was just more or less to showcase for those people who are not within the DDOT space, so they know the background and the need for it. So, what I would like to do, because I don't want to make a decision about what you have, the changes you've made, I want to really see something side by side to see if we can come with up with some compromises,
Okay.
because I that's what I would like to do. It looks like you pulled a lot out, and I know you like to pare things down, and I appreciate that about you. However, I do know that what was presented to you was really very thoughtful, and a lot of research was put into that. And I don't want to take something out that's extremely necessary. So, do you understand where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think also, especially since we might not have quorum, depending on the quorum rules, that I would rather make sure that we had like a full official recommendation from the committee on this one, since it's so important to you, especially.
I
Um,
agree.
I would want I would want the commission to know that the committee voted on it and it had quorum, etc. Whereas with the U Street one, it's like if we don't have quorum, I'm still going to send it to them. And that one we might merge it with the if there's a public safety one. It's that one's a little more fluid, whereas this one is like more
We really
yeah.
need to make sure that we do the deep dive and give it the full rights that it deserves. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I like your language that you brought in, and I think that there's a way that we can incorporate your language as well as look at the things that were in the previous document that I gave you to ensure that we are getting what we need, but also with the thought system that you have. If there's something that needs to be called back, we can work together on it.
Okay, that sounds good to me. So we'll definitely put it on the agenda for February, and then whatever else might pop up. Um, any other final thoughts from people?
In regards to this or just in general?
Oh, I mean, either, I suppose.
Well, I did put a suggestion in the chat before
Oh,
we
I didn't.
lost 8 people. I mean, we lost, I wanted to sort of get the polling done, so that you can have it on record who wants to participate.
Oh,
Because I don't know what form you want us to fill out or whatever. I just want to make sure I put it on record that I'm interested, so
or
that you
for next
know.
term, you mean?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So, um, thank you for putting it on record. And it's fine if people don't want to tonight also, but I'll send it again. And yeah, this can be a good final thought. Um, it's the same form that we filled out last year to kick off that season of the committee. So it's just a Google form. It's on the website. I will send a reminder email to everyone asking them just to fill it out. Um, and it's just good for record keeping and confirming that everybody wants to keep being on the committee. So with that, thanks for being here, everyone. Oh, Angela.
I just wanted to say that I've just submitted it, so let me know if you see it. Just submitted
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Thank you. Okay, great. Well, have a good evening in a couple weeks, and we'll be in touch on email and otherwise, and look out.
Great meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a
Thanks.
great night.